event is ever over. But that had shifted the form of that relationship at that particular time in such a way that all future outcomes and experiences were served extraordinarily in a very, very blessed way. And so my ultimate reality with regard to the event is perfection has been achieved. Now the system of the soul, by the way, the parade organizer also saw the same thing. It only took him around 60 years. But when he was around 80 or 85 years old, he woke up one day and said, I see now that the parade that never happened was the greatest thing that ever occurred in my life. Because if that parade had taken place, the city would have kept me employed. As it was, I was fired. I lost my job. And I lucked into the greatest career of my life as a weatherman. I became the weatherman at Channel 5. I replaced that guy who made the wrong forecast. And my interest in the weather was so fantastic. It was so expanded as a result of getting that bad forecast and doing all this stuff, that I became the greatest weatherman the world has ever seen. I became the weatherman for the world on the world's television channel. I made millions of dollars, wrote 14 books about how to forecast weather, and my life was never the same after that because it rained on that day. Of course, I'm making it all up. But that's how life works. Believe it or not. And when we are in touch with the ultimate reality, and hopefully it doesn't take us until we're 85 to do so, we wind up in a place of incredible gratitude. We just say to God with regard to all the events of our life, thank you, God. Thank you, God. But that place can be arrived at much more rapidly. We don't have to wait until we're 85. If we employ the system of the soul. And here's how that system works. The system of the soul is a system by which we, first of all, using the mind, by the way, this is not about, I want to make it clear, this is not about abandoning the mind, rejecting the mind, or even setting the mind aside. It's about using the mind as a magnificent instrument, a doorway through which we get into and begin to utilize the system of the soul. The mind has the power to do that, because the mind can take us to a place of comprehension, which allows us to comprehend the incomprehensible. Your mind has the ability, by the way, to comprehend the incomprehensible, I promise you that. Or I couldn't be explaining all of this to you now, that's for sure. The system of the soul has been incomprehensible to people for a long time because they have not used their mind as a doorway to the soul. Now, think about it. Use your mind. The soul's job has to do with pure being. The soul is the essence of beingness itself. And so, what the soul's purpose in life is to be a thing, to be a particular thing. And what is it trying to be? We talked about this in lesson 2. Check your notes. Go back into your folder. Check your notes. What does the folder say that the soul is trying to be? The soul seeks to be divinity itself, personified and manifested through you as you. That is the purpose of life, you'll recall from lesson number 2. The purpose of life is to recreate yourself anew in the next grandest version of the greatest vision ever you held about who you are. That is, to recreate yourself as divinity itself, through you as you. And the soul's purpose is to be that. From the place of pure being emerges consciousness. Being, pure being, is a state of consciousness. From consciousness emerges a level of awareness that only consciousness can produce. from that level of awareness in the system of the soul emerges a perspective that is unique to the soul and to the soul alone, transcending the perspective of the mind, and taking us to a new hilltop, a new place from which we can observe all of the events of not only this life, but every life we've ever lived. All of the events that are being experienced by every being who enters into our life. We see the whole panorama. We have a perspective that is indescribable. I don't think I have the words to describe the perspective of the soul, but take it from me. It's an enormous perspective, but not too big for the mind to comprehend once the mind releases and forgives itself for holding such a limited idea and such a limited construction and such a limited point of view. Suddenly the mind joins with the soul hand in hand to create a new perspective of the event that we are now observing, and for that matter, all the events of our life, and of every life we've ever lived. So we go into this unlimited perspective of the soul. And the soul's perspective creates the soul's perception. See, because the place from which you're looking alters and impacts what you see. Or as someone once put it, depending on what hill you're standing on, the valley can look entirely different. So perspective creates perception. That is, the place from which you're looking determines what you see. And your perception creates your belief. Because seeing is believing. So your perception, that is the perception of the soul, impacts the belief that you hold with regard to any particular event that you're looking at. And belief creates behavior. Every behavior of human beings emerges from a belief that the human being holds with regard to any particular moment, experience, or event. And your behavior is what creates your experience. That is, all of the experiences of your life emerge from the behaviors of your life, your behaviors and the behaviors of others. So experience is created by behavior, which eventuates from perception, which emerges from perspective, which is a product of your awareness, which is the result of your consciousness, which is determined by the being or your beingness. That is the system of the soul. When you merge the system of the soul with the mechanics of the mind, down here at the bottom, we see that experience and experience come together. Now we have the experience of the event that's been created by the mechanics of the mind, and we have the experience of the event which is created out of the system of the soul, and the experiences merge together down here to produce the ultimate reality.